Welcome to your reset with Christiane Piano, where the purpose is to support you in releasing all that you are not, so the truth of who you really are can emerge. This is accomplished through working with the body-mind from an ontological perspective. We use various modalities to support you in supporting yourself exactly where you are, so that you may return to an experience of wholeness and ease, moment by moment. Deep reflection is one of the greatest tools through which to do this. To take a moment, to pause, assess, reflect, and literally and figuratively reset, come back to center, and move back into your one and precious life with increased clarity and purpose. Hello, I am Christiane Piano, and welcome back to your Reset Reflections. It's good to be here with you again. You know, this week marks a bit of a milestone. This is the 90th episode of the podcast. 90 weeks of exploring body-mind well-being, growth, learning, unlearning, and life as a human being, all focused on the crucial shift from simply surviving our experiences to actually living them. And that theme of shifting from surviving to living is really what has driven the entire podcast from the beginning. In fact, if you listened to last week's episode, From Fixing to Feeling, the path of the Olympian Feeler, you heard me talk about approaching our bodies with curiosity rather than command or the constant urge to fix. Today, we're taking that same principle and applying it to our mental landscape. As we near the big 100, I realized I've never formally shared the very simple yet powerful moment the idea for this podcast was born. I share it with you because it perfectly illustrates how our minds can try to keep us small, and how one simple choice can completely shift our trajectory. I remember the day vividly. I was walking around in my home, just doing my daily chores, sweeping, folding laundry, that space where your mind is flowing but not forcing anything. We all have that experience, right? That space in the mundane where the most interesting thoughts often surface. I had the reflection, I wonder what would happen if I just recorded my personal reflections out loud and made them available. At the time, this was just a tiny audio piece within my existing VOD service. But then a client asked me directly, why aren't you making this available to the world? Why are you hiding it? That was a moment where rumination and reflection clashed. The ruminating thoughts were overwhelming. The fear of being vulnerable, the fear of being exposed, the fear of critique. I would have never launched the podcast if I'd listened to them. But the reflection asked, what is the cost of not doing this? I had to ask myself some really hard questions and move beyond what was comfortable. Yes, my work is out here now and I am open to critique. But the beautiful side is that when we choose to create a life and get vulnerable, this creates a profound point of connection with other human beings. When we give ourselves permission to be open and real, it invites others to do the same. And when that happens, there is ample space for growth and living and savoring the moments of our one and precious life. That distinction, the life-sucking fear versus the life-giving connection, is the same energy difference we're exploring today. The difference is between rumination and reflection. Let's start with the one that keeps us stuck, which is essentially the fixing mode of the mind, rumination. We all know the feeling. We get lost in a swirl of thoughts, obsessively chomping on a problem, trying to strategize our way out of a challenging situation. This repetitive dwelling on negative feelings, distress, and their consequences is what keeps us in survival mode. Rumination is a life sucker. It sucks up your energy, and it keeps you stuck in the swirl of the problem. Why? Because the brain's default mode network takes over. It's your mind replaying and rehearsing without the necessary support from your control systems. Now, when I say control systems, I'm talking about the parts of your brain that act like your internal GPS and focus manager. They are what allow you to notice when your mind is looping, that moment you realize you've replayed the same conversation 5 times, shift your attention away from that loop and toward the present, stay grounded, and regulate your emotional response. Without these control systems engaged, your mind runs on autopilot, repeating the past or rehearsing the future. And this constant, repetitive dwelling actually makes it difficult to move beyond to allow for problem solving. For example, you find yourself sending an email, hitting send, and then immediately rereading the entire thread a dozen times, critiquing your own tone, and imagining the worst possible response. That obsessive, repetitive loop, that's rumination. It's not resolving anything. It's just burning up energy you could be using to do something else. I invite you to reflect on the following. In the last 24 hours, where have you spent your energy in a mental loop that did not lead to clarity or action? Where was your precious life energy simply being sucked away? You might want to pause and write that down, or just take a mental note. So, if rumination is the life sucker that keeps you stuck in the swirl of the problem, the mental equivalent of fixing mode, how do we stop the drain? The pivot lies in recognizing your power of conscious choice. When you are facing a challenge, you have a choice about how you expend your vital resources. One choice is in an endless drain, and the other is a powerful investment in your life. Reflection is the total opposite of rumination. Reflection is life-giving and regenerating. It is the conscious choice to shift your attention and spend your energy not on circling the problem, but on learning and growing from what you are experiencing. It is the mental skill of the Olympian Feeler. Reflection is the art of unlearning the patterns that keeps you surviving. As the great John C. Maxwell observed, reflective thinking turns experience into insight. This is not about being able to stop the difficult feelings or trying to control the circumstances. Instead, it is about shifting your relationship to the circumstances so you can work with what is unfolding, grow from it, and consciously decide where your energy goes. When we reflect, we activate brain regions that support focus, flexibility, and emotional regulation. This is the shift that turns that repetitive thought into useful insight, helping us get to the root of a pattern and giving us a greater sense of agency in our lives. Now let's look at the deeper layers that drive this choice. Rumination is driven by a profound lack of trust. The feeling that if you stop thinking about the problem, something bad will happen, or you'll be unsafe. It's the mind's desperate attempt to gain control over a circumstance that feels out of control. Reflection is the practice of moving from demanding control to cultivating trust and inner safety. Feeling safe within is fundamental. For many, especially with all that is unfolding in the world, this is a very tough thing to access. Many are in a chronic state of feeling unsafe, which rightly kicks off survival mode. This is not just a thought, it is a deeply felt experience. The work of reflection is not about fixing the outside world, but about creating a deep, sustainable sense of inner safety that supports you in navigating the world with clarity and presence. This cultivation of inner safety is foundational, because without it, our nervous system defaults to defense, especially in connection with others. Let's look at how this plays out in one of the most common and powerful triggers, defensiveness in our relationships. I invite you to think of a recent instance where you felt yourself become defensive because someone made a claim about your way of being. Perhaps a partner said, "I don't trust you to handle that budget alone." Or a colleague observed, "You're too controlling about the meeting structure." When someone makes a claim about us, the challenge is that we can get caught in the spiral of rumination, debating over and over whether what they said is true or not true. You're chasing an external judgment, believing the issue is about truth. This entire external loop is the mind's way of trying to convince someone they are wrong and you are right. But the issue is not about truth. It's about an experience. The fact that you were triggered and felt that urge of defensive energy. Reflection is the choice to shift your focus immediately inward and use that trigger constructively. It starts by developing the capacity to firstly notice that you have been triggered, and then drop your attention into your body. Notice the physical sensations, the emotions, and examine inwardly with curiosity. What got triggered? You are using the trigger to reflect and explore your inner world rather than debate the external comment. This is supported by what researchers have found. A study from the University of Liverpool found that when people attribute distress to past experiences, they are led to depression or anxiety, largely by leading a person to ruminate and blame themselves for the problem. The study highlights that while we can't change the past, it is possible to help a person change the way they think and teach them positive coping strategies that can reduce stress levels. Reflection is a honed skill set that, when developed, will support you on your path of growth. When we are reactive in a conversation, we create knots in the space between people, an energetic residue of defensiveness, misunderstanding, or hurt. To clean up that space means actively returning to the relationship with accountability and intention. This process isn't about proving your partner wrong or minimizing their experience. It is about owning your part and creating room for mutual understanding. This cleanup can happen internally, taking ownership of your trigger, or externally, mending the connection. It starts with 2 questions to shift you out of the swirl and into this essential relational work. Number 1, what is mine to own? What was my reaction versus my chosen response? Where did my survival pattern get activated? Number 2, will this move us toward understanding? Will what I do or say next open the door for me to relate to the other person, or will it just feed the dynamic of being right? Reflection allows you to acknowledge the humanity in the moment without getting sucked into the problem. It allows you to move beyond the blame and into clarity, turning a difficult experience into a moment for connection and growth. This shift from blame to clarity is only possible when your brain has the capacity to pause the swirl and engage its focus systems. You might be thinking, my thoughts are harder to manage under stress. My brain is failing me. But it's not a failure. It's that your brain's regulation system is overwhelmed. And that isn't fixed, and it can be strengthened. The challenge isn't the problem itself. It's getting stuck in the mental loop. We don't need to force a perfect outcome. We just need to practice a way out of the swirl. Over time, these small actions help your brain move into clarity more easily, allowing reflection to become your natural way of being. Basically, it's about interrupting the experience. So let's talk about some of the small ways you can invite a shift to intentionally shift your attention and establish clear focus. These are just a few examples. You are invited to discover what works best for your body-mind. You cannot force a shift in your whole being. You can only engage in these practices that invite a shift over time with consistency, which leads to increased present moment body-mindful awareness. So the first one is called self-distancing. It's the observer's view. And this is a simple technique that activates your control system and reduces activity. When the spiral starts, practice naming your thoughts from a distance. Don't try to stop them. Just observe them. For example, I'm noticing that I keep worrying about the outcome. You are moving from the I can't believe I loop to the I'm noticing that I perspective. The second practice is physical activity and re-engagement. A change in environment and intentional focus are powerful tools. Try tasks that require focus, like puzzles, memory games, or even deliberate concentrated movement. Physical activity and moving to a place that has positive associations can help too. You are directly re-engaging the brain's control circuits. This isn't about fixing your body or your mind. It's about using conscious movement to support a reset in how you are engaging in life, not only with yourself, but with the outside world. The third is breaking down the problem. Rumination thrives on huge, overwhelming problems. Reflection thrives on clarity. If you are ruminating about an issue, you can certainly start by writing it down. However, the most productive path is often to speak to someone you trust. That person can mirror back for you, and that mirroring simply supports you in seeing something you haven't seen before. Now, while it's not impossible to gain this perspective by yourself, it is quite rare. By externalizing the problem, you separate out different parts, create a specific step-by-step plan, and begin to move forward. This shifts you out of the repetitive loop and into the action-oriented control system. By engaging in these practices, you are consistently committing to your choice to listen, learn, and grow, rather than remain stuck in the past. The shift from ruminating to reflecting isn't just a mental correction. It's a fundamental change in how you engage with your whole life. It's about giving your body-mind the consistent practice it needs to move from autopilot to conscious living and act with greater agency. The shift from ruminating to reflecting is the practice that supports you in becoming the Olympian Feeler of your inner landscape, the whole package. This dedication is about learning to pay deep attention to what you are experiencing, not just your thoughts and emotions, but the felt sense within, your physical sensations, your structural holding patterns, and your breath patterns, just to name a few. You use this whole body information to support your reflection, which allows you to listen to the entire human experience without demanding control. You may be surprised that I'm going to quote a basketball coach here, but I think it's important to remember that sources of wisdom and knowledge come in all sorts of contexts. Because of this, we must remain open and not get boxed in. This entire cyclical process of settling in, taking effective action, and pausing to reflect is beautifully summarized in this one piece of wisdom. Remember this: follow effective action with quiet reflection. From the quiet reflection will come even more effective action. That's from the great basketball coach, John Wooden. This week, I invite you to pay close attention to your energy. Where is it being sucked away by rumination, the surface activity? And where can you consciously choose to invest it in reflection, the root work which is built on trust and inner safety? If you use reflection and supportive interactive dialogue and engage in practices that invite a reset, you can move beyond getting lost in rumination. I'd love to hear what resonated with you personally from today's episode. Feel free to reach out and let me know. If you found value in this discussion, please consider sharing the episode with someone you think may be interested. And as always, I appreciate you taking the time to like or follow the podcast. Thank you for being here with me for this 90th episode. I look forward to connecting with you again next week for more Your Reset Reflections. If you are interested in working with me on any level of body-mind well-being, whether it be through individual body-mind maturation work sessions, perhaps participating in a series, individual privates, or through my video on-demand services, if you have questions, if you would like to engage on any level, feel free to schedule a free 15-minute consult in the appointment section, www.christianepiano.com, or email me directly at growth@christianepiano.com.